With me, NBC Chief Foreign Correspondent Richard Engel, retired U.S. Army Major General Bob Scales, The Atlantic's Washington Editor-at-Large Steve Clemons, and the Huffington Post's Global Editorial Director Howard Fineman. Great to have all of you here. General, second largest bomb in our arsenal. Walk us through what is this thing and how much damage can it do?
This is a modern version of the Vietnam-era daisy cutter. It's a huge bomb. It's about 11 tons of explosive. It's not dropped from a bomber. It's actually dropped from the rear gate of a cargo plane. A parachute pulls it out. It separates from the parachute, and it's guided to the target by GPS.
So it's accurate.
Oh, it's precision accurate, but the purpose of it is not fragmentation, not shrapnel. It's to build up what's called an overpressure, or a blast, if you will. And the purpose of it is to collapse buildings, tear up rail junctions, collapse tunnels through the blast. It doesn't kill through shrapnel. And so it makes it unique in the arsenal. And the nation, we've got 13 of these left. They've been setting in Florida for, what, 15, 16 years.
So why is it now?
Well, first of all, this was a Special Operations Command request. It's their mission. This mission's been in the works for about 3 months. And what they wanted to do was to test it in the narrow confines of those Afghan valleys to see if the bomb landing in the middle of that can use those confining walls to build up overpressure and cause damage to tunnels, mostly tunnels in the area. They want to see what effect that would have on tunnels, so perhaps in the future they can use it again against maybe more lucrative targets.
Well, it's been in the works then, but Steve, even though the president has said from the very time he started running for president that ISIS was going to be in his sights, why this, why now?
Well, I think that he has done what he said, which he's given the military authorization to move almost without him knowing what they're doing. I mean, that's what it sounds like to me. And I think right now, ISIS, I mean, it is odd because, you know, those of us who've been looking at the direction of ISIS have been looking at it, Syria and Iraq.
Yeah.
And so the fact that you've got ISIS activated.
And when he said, I'm going to bomb I'm not going to say the word out of them, he was talking about Syria and Iraq and the oil fields.
Right. I mean, what really impressed me, though, about what the general just shared in terms of his knowledge of what this did, it almost reminds me of the old World War II strategist, later very famous strategist, Paul Nitze, who really built his reputation of someone who studied bomb damage during World War II. And it almost sounds like a meeting of a strategic need that was decided in the field to try and do something here, but also looking at what could you do with this bomb they've never used before. So it sounds like a bit of experimentation as well as, you know, as the need of actually trying to disrupt ISIS. And that raises the questions of what do they think they can do next with this bomb and where would they drop it?
Yeah, and we'll get to that. But Richard, I want to go to you. Tell us a little bit more about the region where this was, who might have been there, and what you can tell us about the strategy of going there.
So just to pick up on the theme that we were just discussing about experimentation, there are not that many places where you can drop a bomb like this. As the general mentioned, it is dropped from a cargo plane. The rear of the cargo plane opens, a parachute pulls the thing out. Cargo planes fly relatively low. They fly very slowly. So you can't go into an area like Syria or Iran with a cargo plane, nowhere where they have heavy air defenses. So in remote Afghanistan, where there are not very many people, particularly in this area, Nangarhar province, which is considered something of an ISIS stronghold. It is. It's a very, very remote part of Afghanistan along the Pakistani border. It is considered one of the big strongholds of ISIS. And if you were to hit a tunnel complex, which is what the military said it hit, a tunnel complex it claims was being used by ISIS, there are not that many people in the area, or one would presume there are not many people in a tunnel complex in Nangarhar province, and they're not sophisticated air defenses. So it's an opportunity to drop this bomb on an enemy that is declared and clear and understood without the risk of too many civilian casualties and without the risk of being shot down by sophisticated air defenses. The question is, and the general had a very sort of slippery phase there, he said perhaps they're testing it for more lucrative targets. So does that mean Iran? Does that mean North Korea? Well, I don't know what those lucrative targets might be, but if you look at the current climate, I guess North Korea would probably come to mind.
Well, let's talk about this target and what effect this might have in the fight against ISIS, Richard.
Well, ISIS has, frankly, the war in Afghanistan is not going terribly well. There's just under 10,000 U.S. troops there, but the Afghan government remains quite weak, and there are many pockets of the country where there is still great ISIS influence, al-Qaeda influence, Taliban influence, and those groups can effectively carry out hit-and-run style attacks whenever they want to in Kabul. If you remember, just about a month ago, ISIS staged an elaborate, drawn-out attack on a hospital right in the center of Kabul, and Afghan special forces had to land on the roof and try and break into the building, and there were patients and medical staff who were clinging to the sides of the building while ISIS was going from room to room killing people. That's happening in the capital. So the idea would be to use an enormous bomb like this to eliminate a concentration or a tunnel complex of ISIS fighters, but also to try and send a psychological message. It is a frightening weapon. It makes a lot of noise. It actually literally will make the ground shake. So you would want to terrify your enemy, shock and awe the enemy, and use it in a place where it is permissible.
So a message to the enemy, but I wonder, Howard, if it's also a message to the president's base doing what he said he was going to do. He called it today a very successful mission. Let me just play that.
If you look at what's happened over the last 8 weeks and compare that really to what's happened over the last 8 years, you'll see there's a tremendous difference, So we have incredible leaders in the military, and we have incredible military, and we are very proud of them. And this was another very, very successful mission.
So one part of this is the military part of it. The other part is the political part of it. How do you read that part of it, Howard?
Well, there are 2 or 3 parts to the political answer. One of them is typical Trump think, which is, I'm going to distinguish myself from Barack Obama in any way I possibly can.
So Syria, now Afghanistan.
Yes, and also Barack Obama had little drones. I've got a 21,000-pound bomb, okay?
And nobody's ever used
before, that Barack Obama didn't have the guts to use, but I have the guts to use, even though I don't think he knew about it in advance, actually. Okay, that's number one. Number two, there's the interplay within the administration, which is the Pentagon is showing President Trump their wares, okay? Don't forget, we had the fight with Steve Bannon. That's pretty much over. I think Mad Dog Mattis and H.R. McMaster and John Kelly and even Rex Tillerson have pretty much cornered the isolationist, so-called anti-globalist Steve Bannon. Put him in the corner, and this is a demonstration of what they could do. Number three, this is Donald Trump's kind of war action. It's dropping a big bomb. It's not putting boots on the ground. It's showing strength without committing troops. And it's message sending. So it's exactly what he wants to do. And it's ISIL. This is a branch of ISIL out there in Afghanistan, ISIL-K. And he's going after who he said he was going to go after when he ran for office. So, and also this shows the further shift of Donald Trump from domestic issues to global issues. Every president eventually decides they've had enough with Congress, they've had enough with the bureaucracy, they have enough with the press. I'm going to get into global affairs. Donald Trump has rushed into global consciousness within a few weeks of the beginning of his presidency.
Also something interesting that McMaster is going, a smaller message maybe, but what do you make of that, Steve?
Well, I think McMaster is trying to figure out, they've advocated putting more troops back into Afghanistan and trying to sort of look at what they can do to return it, because our level of troops right now are there pretty much designed to make sure that Kabul doesn't fall. But you have a rise of warlords in Afghanistan, and you have the rise of Taliban virtually everywhere else we are. What's interesting about this in attacking ISIL in Afghanistan, it's probably the least significant, smallest portion of the so-called enemy or list of concerns there. It will have no impact on the strategic tip or balance. It looks like like it because it's big, theatrical, it sounds scary, but this was not taking out the Haqqani network. It was not taking out various previous pieces of the al-Qaeda-affiliated Taliban network. And I think that has to be thought about, that you know, it's probably crude to call it this, but both in Syria, in the kind of strike we had on the airbase, and with this big bomb that was in a remote area, they're pretty polite strikes that have low risk and that don't necessarily create lots of blowback for the United States.
To be cynical about it, politically, they changed the subject big time.
Yeah.
Okay, we're not talking about the health care bill. We're not talking about the wall. We're talking about Donald Trump as a global actor.
And so in our last 30 seconds, where might this be used next?
I don't know. I think it has to be a proof of principle. I don't think the president even authorized this. I think it came from General Nicholson. I know this mission, as I said earlier, has been in the works for several months. This is part of a exploration, if you will, of how they could use this weapon, perhaps in other places. But
North Korea has a lot of tunnels.
yeah, but this bomb is inappropriate for North Korea. It's a completely different mission set and a completely different set of circumstances.
A conversation for another day, but a
bet.
fascinating one. General, Steve, Howard, thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.